Greetings. I just wanted to go over some options that you might find helpful, I suppose. Don't mind the toaster of a computer I'm playing on. It is pretty, everything's on lowest settings because my computer is absolutely trash. So, don't mind these textures. But enough enough with that. Cuz my experience with this option menu at first glance was a disaster. Everything's where you wouldn't expect it to be. I felt like there was so much, and I just wanted to go through, like, you have stuff which is just like your confirm button preference, things like that. Dash controls, you can only use left stick, only use the right bumper. You can swap left and right bumper. Your basic stuff. You have button configurations, which I feel like type 1 is pretty good if you're like a Monster Hunter veteran, but you can change it. Hold confirmation duration, like how long you need to hold the button before confirming certain actions. Like, so if you want to just skip events, stuff like that, you can change that to short, like calling your sacred, things like that. Disable auto sheath. A lot of people probably enable this. Or not enable. A lot of people probably appreciate having no auto sheath. It can get you killed fairly easily, and it is enabled by default. So that's something you might want to disable, and that is on the first page of the second tab, which is your controls. Directional control. This is one that's on type 1 by default. I think I'm just hovering around the arc belt. Yeah, no big deal. No big deal. But this is a preference thing too. I personally prefer type 2, where you tilt up and your hunter moves in the direction they're facing. So forward is forward. Forward is not forward on the screen kind of deal. No, I mean, that's not true. Like, forward does what you expect it to do. Let me get it away from this arc belt real quick. Probably not gonna happen. Just, so tilting up moves the hunter in the direction the camera is facing. Tilting down moves him towards the screen. I don't actually see a difference, if I'm being honest. If I'm being completely honest, trying it out, I don't see a difference. Because up here still moves my character away from the camera. I do type 2 because I feel like that's what I would want. But you can see that, like, even on type 2, holding up moves it in the direction of the camera. Let's hop back on this sacred real quick and maybe jump off. And we'll meet him again soon, I'm sure. Not so quick, sacred. Not so quick. To me, type 2 made more sense, so I changed it, but it is type 1 by default. That's just the same thing for keyboard, which defaults at type 2. Expanded item bar controls. For me, this is like, I've left all this on default. It feels like every other Monster Hunter that I've ever played. Slinger auto load is beautiful. Mind you, if you're pinned by like arc weld, I don't think the slinger auto loads, so you might have to do that. But like if you're just out in the field and you hover over a slinger ammo, you'll see at the bottom there it automatically equips. That is on by default, and I do feel like that is an amazing addition to this game. Item use controls. It's not for like the radio menu. I think this is also a preference, but for me, type 1 is the better option. That means like I just release and I use a potion. I remember in World I tried playing with like type 2. It might have actually defaulted at type 2, or you'd had to go over and actually push the right stick in, or I don't know what it is if you're on keyboard, but you would have to push the button in, which I am not a fan of at all. The more time you can save, the better. A lot of this stuff on type 2 I don't feel affects gameplay too much. Your map zoom settings, controls while holding start back. You'll have to apologize. I'm pretty sure that's start. Open menu controls. The focus mode. This is also something that I feel will boil down to preference. But in case you guys don't know that it's there, you can either have it on by default. You have to hold your left trigger, or if you're on keyboard, whatever your focus mode button is, you hold it and you're in focus mode for as long as you're holding it. Or you can put it on a toggle, so you toggle your focus mode on and off. Like right now, I'm not holding anything. So if you don't want to worry about holding it down, but you do want to stay in focus mode, you can do that option. Or you can also do advanced, where you can do that for melee or ranged specific. So if maybe you don't want that in ranged, or don't want that in melee, you can switch on the advanced, and you can do that. The call sacred controls. This, I do believe, is actually defaulted on type 1, where you call it with up or down, or you use a radial menu shortcut. Me from the future here. Further testing has led me to the conclusion that type 3 is probably the better option here if you do opt out of type 1, since you can use up on the D-pad while in combat to have your auto move mode, and be outside of combat to just hop on your sacred and be in manual move mode. There's an option to auto explore for the sacred. I switched mine. I'm sure we'll get around that. I can never remember where any of this stuff is, which is why I'm making this video. Game settings. Sacred auto explore. This is why these option menus are just god awful. So you have in controls all this stuff for sacred, and then in game settings you have sacred auto explore, which I feel is better turned off, because it's not like you hop on your sacred and he just starts booking it, right? In controls, if you do want the option to have him book it, you can actually switch this to type 2, or maybe you keep it on auto explore for like up on your D-pad or whatever your controls are, and you switch it to type 3 to have a way to move manually. I like having both options there, because maybe sometimes I just want to hop on and I want to go, right? You can also change like what it does through the radial menu. You can change the manual controls if you want to just increase your speed with your right bumper, right trigger slowing down, all that. You can do that. Or if you'd like a more natural kind of feel, you can do it with the angle, which I assume is like a controller only thing. I don't think that works on keyboard since you can't tilt. But if you'd like to do that, go for it. Personally, once he's moving top speed, I'd like to just let him run. But I can see the appeal of that option. Root controls, tilting left stick while moving at top speed exits, like his explore route, or if he's like moving at a monster, or you can tilt and press B. I feel like that's just doing the most, if I'm being honest, but this is more of a preference thing. You have your key bindings. I haven't even looked at this, if I'm being honest. It's just how the keyboard is used during gameplay. So the keyboard can control the actions. I'm actually going to change this right now because this is the first time I've seen this. I know, great guide, right? We're learning together. The keyboard controls only chat functionality. Recommended for players who use a controller and a keyboard. That's actually really nice because I don't want to have to like worry about doing something when I'm playing with my controller and going to chat to somebody. Or you can have it to only bring up shortcuts, which are recommended for players who use a controller for most actions, and a keyboard for shortcuts, which I imagine is like a form of radial menu. I haven't actually looked into that, but that sounds nice too. Kind of like, oh, let me like put a potion on one. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. You've got scroll wheel priorities, shortcut display. You've got all that stuff. I would recommend to look at these yourself because there's a lot going on. Camera controls. You can change your camera speed, horizontal, vertical, all that good stuff. Reticle speed, camera inversion. You've got dead zone settings in case your controller just isn't quite right. Mine is actually got some dead zones to it, so that's something I need to look into. You've got your zoom, you've got your pan, which I'm pretty sure your pan is like a field of view. I can't quite remember. No. Your zoom is the field of view. I'm retarded. So, personally, I cannot stand being this close to my hunter, and I wish I could zoom out more. To me, this doesn't make sense. You would think the higher zoom... I would think. I'm not going to say what you might think. I would think the higher zoom is closer. The lower zoom is further away. But if you do want like a more zoomed out field of view, the camera zoom is what you're going for there. You've got your camera shake, your ambient camera sway, which I'd be lying if I said I knew what it did. Terrain adjustment, where if like you go into a wall, it kind of adjusts for it. I haven't noticed anything like that. I feel like the option to adjust it works pretty well. You've got your focus camera, which locks the camera onto a targeted monster and keeps it in view, which to me is the most god-awful change in this entire game. It's I failed the quest, by the way. So I mean, maybe somebody out there likes this, but I cannot stand when I'm trying to like move around and the camera just stays locked on. For the more classic Monster Hunter camera, you want to disable this. So tapping your L1 or your camera button will center the camera on whatever monster you are focusing on. This, I guess, is mostly a personal preference, but what I'm used to is the disabled version, where it's not going to follow, but hitting the camera button will focus your camera on your monster. This is the big thing for me. I literally just found this and decided to make the video because I was like, this is something people probably want to know. Target filtering. So this is like, you can cycle through your targets in the bottom left. You can do all monsters. You can do large monsters. I don't really see a need for all monsters, but if that's your jam, then that's your jam. Camera reset direction. Resets the camera to aim in the direction left stick is tilted or to aim in the direction you're facing. Once again, this is going to be a personal preference, but for the older Monster Hunter feel, you want the hunter's direction, and I do believe that's what it defaults onto. A lot of this other stuff, just like camera reset options, gyro camera controls. I don't even know what that is. Monster, maybe I could read it. Whether gyro functionality is enabled for camera. My computer's too shit for that. Excuse my language. I don't even know what that is. Adjust the camera to enter a cinematic mode when first sighting a monster. So like a Gypceros flies by and it kind of does a little zoom and follows it for a second. I'm sure like that's what this is talking about. If you want a more cinematic experience, leave it enabled. If you don't, disable it. Your disabled stuff, don't judge me. My computer's like 10 years old, but it gets the job done. It gets the job done when I cap it at 30 frames a second for that true console experience, VSync, I should probably disable that if I'm being honest. These display settings, like you're gonna know what you're going for. If you are having issues with like frame rates, I'm picky. I don't want to lower my screen resolution, but lowering your screen resolution will sometimes help that. It's worth looking into. This is where you change borderless window mode. This is where you can change your frames. You can choose to cap them or uncap them. You can change your cutscene frame rate, your background frame rate, all of that, your brightness, your VSync, your graphics. I'm not here to give you graphics advice. I have a 10-year-old computer, so, everything I know is a decade old. But they do a good job at showing, like, the differences that it makes. What I would suggest is you can run the benchmark test, change your graphics, and try to get something that you enjoy looking at that also has decent frame rate. For me, the only decent frame rate was everything bare bones. But even though they've kind of pad that with cutscenes in the beginning and the end, you can get a decent idea if you don't pay attention to their score and you just look at the frames when the character's walking around. You can get a decent idea of what you can achieve with your PC, and hopefully it becomes a little bit better on full release. Sound effects, we've got your voice volume, everything you imagine. You can change your voice chat settings here, so it just enables. You can change it to push to talk, disable it altogether. The volume, voice chat auto swap, automatically switches to. I just use Discord. I haven't actually. My computer dies if I go into a lobby, so I haven't paid much attention to voice chat. But anything voice chat related, you'll find here. You'll find your sliders for just basic audio stuff. Coming at you from the future again, something I forgot to mention here was your Palico language. If you don't like the cats in your game talking to you, you can switch it to the original feline language where they will just meow, and then I believe you get subtitles at the bottom. If you want to turn like your background music off when the window isn't active, you can do that here. With also do like people's voices when inactive, sound effects when inactive. All that If you're colorblind, in the very last tab here, accessibility, you'll find like your color blindness. This looked a little more vibrant, so I kind of wanted that. I'm not colorblind. Maybe. Probably not colorblind. But you have visual accessibility, where you can... So, by default, like your health bars, you see all that just kind of like disappeared to make more room on the screen. If you want that stuff up all the time, you can get that in visual accessibility. Change the stuff to fix. You've got your health gauge, stamina, sharpness, companion health gauge, which will be like your support hunters if you use those, or it'll be, you know, people you play with. You can change the text size, subtitle text size, and the subtitle background, which backgrounds are displayed behind subtitle text in order to improve readability. Okay, so that puts a background behind the subtitles so you can read it. And your HUD, you have quite a bit of quite a bit of... Okay, well, I can't change anything here. Maybe this is only customizability, first of all. Let me get that word out. And you can't actually change this stuff, but I imagine in the full game you will be able to. So that's actually really neat, and maybe there's something you want. Like, it looks like it's just, you know, you can hide it, make it bigger, make it smaller. But that's pretty nice. It's one step away from being able to move stuff around. You've got your auditory stuff. You've got your closed captions, cutscene titles. You got the speaker names. So when somebody's talking in the cutscene, it'll say their name first and what they're saying. In and out of cutscenes. You got your motion sickness reduction. You got your... Once again, can't change any of this stuff. But if it is making you motion sickness, there is some stuff here, which I think a lot of this was in the options earlier, but it's nice that they have that kind of separated. Automatic settings. That's kind of nice. So, like, if you're playing on a console and you're sitting far back, they make some of the HUD settings just a little bit larger to be able to see it better. Or if you're at like your computer, they shrink them. So these are just kind of settings they're just automatic settings, like it says, you know. All right, this was a little longer than I had hoped it would be, but we were able to cover a lot of the bigger things. Auto explore for your sacred, auto sheath for your weapon, the classic style targeting cam. Those were a lot of things that I felt were important, at least. And I know I don't usually do informational content, but I will try to get more out upon full release of the game. If you have watched my videos before, they're mostly entertainment videos opposed to the information videos, but I will try to do more of these. If you like what you see, stick around maybe. Tune in for more. If you'd like to see some more entertainment style videos, you can also do that. And we'll see you at the end of the month. It's February 28th, I think. So once the game releases, happy hunting, hunters. And until then, peace.